Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. I'm here taking a look back at Week 11's main slate on DraftKings. We're going to look at how the NFL lineups did. I'm going to take a look back at my Best Buys column that I write every single Thursday. Well, I write it on Wednesday. It's published on Thursday on ESPN Plus. You have to be a Plus member to read that article. I go over it every single week to see where I was right, where I was wrong, where my process was correct, but we got unlucky, where my process was incorrect, and I just need to make changes to try and be better moving forward. Then I'm going to take a look at my cash game lineup by looking at the four-man competition that we do for the Daily Fantasy Edge. Also comes out every Thursday, available wherever you download podcasts, so definitely take a listen to that. I post the highlights right here on this YouTube channel every week. It's about 10 minutes worth of highlights. The whole video is usually 60 to 75 minutes, and DraftKings posts that on their YouTube page, as well as on DK Playbook. So go check the whole video out if you do like watching videos instead of listening to podcasts. Me, Adam, and Pete do that every week. We've been doing it. This is our 6th season, I think. Because we started doing it on another, whatever. It's like our 5th or 6th season doing that podcast. It's been a long time. There was one thing that I forgot to do this week. Not forgot to do. I wrote my article for alzeidenfeld.com with my 5 picks of the week, and I thought I posted it, but I didn't click the final click to publish the article. So I'm not counting that in my season total. I think I was 3-2 this week. It's not going to count towards my against the spread totals for the entire year. I'll just skip it. It sucks. I wanted to have 17 weeks of against the spread, 5 picks. I'm not going to have that. I'll have 16. I'll get back and post that again this week before the main slate. So unfortunately, I didn't get that done, but I appreciate you guys showing up once again for the weekend recap. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, click that notifications bell, and if you wouldn't mind dropping a like on this video, that would be greatly appreciated. You guys are the hardcore of the hardcore, because this is one of the lower viewed videos on the channel. So most people just want the answers to the test. Show me the stuff for next week. I think it's very important to look back at your process and see what you did right and what you did wrong. So let's start here. Best Buys for last week. Here it is. Started with Cam Newton, 6,200 on DraftKings. He had 28.48 DraftKings points, 25 of 37, 357 yards and 3 touchdowns. Really didn't chip in anything on the ground. They run the ball now inside the 5, and they're doing it with Christian McCaffrey, and then they play action to him, and they get Greg Olsen wide open on a touchdown pass. So if Cam Newton is going to be this viable through the air, granted, he's not going to be this every single week, but if it's going to boost his passing game numbers and still have the ability to run the ball or have rushing touchdowns, but they're just not going to slam him into the line, I don't mind him moving forward pretty much at all. So definitely paid off in the salary in a week when he was supposed to. Deshaun Watson did not. 5,700, 11 fantasy points, 16 of 24, 208 and a touchdown. Ryan Fitzpatrick got benched. We knew that was a risk coming in. But Mike Clay had a great tweet showing that, like, even if you played the wrong Bucs quarterback everywhere, you just started whoever was starting and dealing with the benchings, the Bucs quarterbacks on the season are still the QB 10. Even if you just started the 1. If you just use team quarterbacks, they're better than Drew Brees in terms of overall fantasy scoring. So Fitzpatrick, 11 fantasy points, cost you 5,900, 167, no touchdowns, ran a little bit, and he got benched. So, kind of sucks. The Buccaneers do what they're going to do. It cost 5,600, but that's I'll take the L there. We knew that there was benching risk. Drew Brees definitely paid off. At 6,500, the most expensive quarterback on the slate, but he played like it. 33.52 DraftKings points, 363 yards and 4 touchdowns, and an absolute shellacking of the Philadelphia Eagles. Lamar Jackson, the anomaly, 13 of 19. We thought that he'd throw it about 20 times. We talked about this yesterday on the Anti-Tinkercast, the last 45 minutes before lock. I'm there every Sunday morning on twitch.tv. The link is down below in the description. Go follow me there. Make sure notifications are on there too, so you can find out when I'm live. You can catch me live on stream. I'd love to meet you. 150 yards for the air with 1 pick. Ran the ball 27 times for 117 yards. Did fumble once. Accounted for 0 touchdowns. 19.71 DraftKings points. If Lamar Jackson is going to start one more week and his price remains cheap enough, this is Tim Tebow part 2, guys. And Tim Tebow, I'm not saying that for everything else that Tim Tebow was. I'm saying that in terms of how much of a floor his rushing gives to you at quarterback as long as he's priced cheaply. If he's over 6K, it's a different story. If he's 5,500 or below, I think you have to really consider Lamar Jackson at quarterback, because the possibility that he runs one in, high. The possibility that he throws one touchdown, whether it's on a play action where he gets somebody open behind the defense and gets a 60-yard touchdown pass, he only really needs 150 yards passing in order to satisfy his salary expectation. And there's so very much upside because of his ability with his legs. And if he throws one touchdown and runs for another, right? If that's all he does, throws one lucky touchdown and runs for one touchdown as well, this is a 20 to 25 plus point fantasy output moving forward, as long as he's the starter with the way that they're rolling him out, the way that they're utilizing. We also spoke on the Anti-Tinkercast about how much I love the running backs with him. Unfortunately, Gus went nuts, and Alex Collins ran in one touchdown. They had 3 rushing touchdowns, all by the running backs. Team Jam 'em in. If you played it this week, you made a ton of money, because it didn't matter else what happened, because you had like 100 points from the 3 running backs. Starting with Saquon Barkley, my number 1 on the week, had 38.2 DraftKings points, 27 carries, 142 with 2 touchdowns on the ground. Didn't have as much usage in the passing game as he had before, because why throw it when you can just hand it to him and rip off the amount of yards, 6 at a carry, that he was doing yesterday. 2 catches on 3 targets for 10 yards and a touchdown, 38.2, as I said, for Saquon Barkley. Ezekiel Elliott against the Falcons, they continue to give up points in bunches to opposing running backs. 23 carries, 122, and a touchdown. 7 catches for Ezekiel Elliott on 8 targets for 79 yards, 36.1 DraftKings points. Dion Lewis, this is a bust, and I want to talk about this one for a second. He only had 10 carries, 24 yards, 1 catch, 2 targets, for 8 yards, 4.2 DraftKings points. He was a way for you, if you wanted to open up salary to pay for a wide receiver. You could certainly do that. There was 1 or 2 other running backs in the 4K range, unless you wanted to pay down. There were some value wide receivers. That was kind of the route that I think I should have ended up going in my cash game lineup. I was profitable in cash games this week. We'll talk about that later. My issue with Dion Lewis is less about Dion Lewis specifically, and more about the expectation, the probability of outcomes, the range of outcomes for the Tennessee Titans defense. The Tennessee Titans offense, their offense has such a wide range of outcomes. And we talk about this in terms of cash. We want players with a high floor that have the access to having a good ceiling. If you extrapolate that out to the entire Titans team, that team has a really low floor, but also a really high ceiling. So there's a massive amount of variance between their range of outcomes, bottom to top. If you look at the Saints, the Rams, the Chiefs, some of the better offenses in the league, obviously. I mean, not every offense is going to be as good as those are, but their range of outcomes, the meat of the bell curve. I'm not talking about the bottom 5% or the top 5%, even the top 10 and bottom 10. The meat of that bell curve, right there in the middle, is extremely meaty. Right? So like the guys on the Saints, Kamara, Ingram, Ingram is going to have less projectable usage than Dion Lewis in just about every projections model. Looking back at the decision point in week 11, which is why I went for Lewis. I said I liked Ingram and I did have him in tournaments, but I was trying to get the guy that had 20 plus touches more likely than the guy who was going to have 15. It's less about game environment for me. Well, the Saints were projected to score more points than the Titans, so therefore you had to pick Ingram. It's less about that for me, but it's more about how many times, if you play that game 1,000 times, do they end up with that mean projection? And the Titans, I think, get there less times than the Saints do. So looking back at it, the process here is probably incorrect to go for the guy with more touches in a higher variable offense. And so either paying way down, paying way up, or going for Ingram over Lewis was probably the right play from a process standpoint. It didn't have to do with game environment is what I'm trying to get across. Like, well, that game had a higher total. It did, so there's more touchdowns to go around, but if they get inside the red zone, the touchdowns are going to go to Kamara first, then Thomas, then him, in terms of Ingram. It was more... Ingram's going to get his 12 to 15 carries. He's going to get his 2 to 4 catches. And that Saints offense is going to score 30 points more often than not. and the Titans offense is going to not score 25 points more often than not. So that's the mistake here for me. I know it's a little bit long-winded, but I really wanted to get it across because 240 characters on Twitter just is not enough to do it. So that was the process mistake there as far as I'm concerned. It had nothing to do with team total. It had everything to do with ranges of outcomes, and I didn't process that well enough last week, having Lewis slightly ahead of Ingram. David Johnson, 19.4 DraftKings points, broke 100 yards on the ground. Usage was fantastic, 26 touches, 25 of them on the ground for 137. Got you the bonus on DraftKings. 1 catch on 3 targets for 17. That's a little concerning. We'd like to see more targets for David Johnson, but if he's going to touch it 26 times, whatever. If he's going to get 26 every week, I'm fine. The problem was he had like a 54-yard touchdown call back because RSJ got called for a hold about 10 yards downfield when he had already broken through the middle. So that was unfortunate. He could have had an absolute smash day with over 30 fantasy points where team jam him in between Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, and David Johnson would have had about 110 fantasy points. James Conner, high variance here. We talked about it. They didn't run as many snaps as usual. He dropped a touchdown pass, did catch 6 balls on 9 targets. One of those targets would have gone for a touchdown at the end of the game and made him a little bit more viable, give him like 18 fantasy points. Still wouldn't have been a smash day, but it wouldn't have been the 10.9 that he ended with. Michael Thomas, 4 catches on 4 targets, 92 yards and a touchdown, 19.2. Good, not great. Keenan Allen, 9 catches, 12 targets, 89 yards and 1 touchdown, 24 fantasy points. Much better from him than the 8,800 on Thomas. Amari Cooper, shocking. The one time I write up Amari Cooper in like 3 years, and Amari Cooper does Amari Cooper things and shows you why I don't really write him up very often. 3 catches on 5 targets, ran a route on every single one of Dak's dropbacks. They just didn't pepper him. Everything went through Zeke, as can be expected against the Falcons, but the Falcons also very bad over the last 6 weeks against wide receivers. He just didn't get the usage that we would have hoped for. You know, he got 6 targets. Sorry, he got 5 targets. I would have hoped for about 6 to 8, so he didn't get the volume that I want, especially with the amount of routes that he ran. Didn't catch anything, didn't break anything. 6.6 DraftKings points, kind of sucked. DeAndre Hopkins caught a touchdown, 5 catches on 6 targets, 56 yards, 15.6 DraftKings points. There's a lot of 5-6 in there. Illuminati confirmed. Seth Roberts, 4 catches on 7 targets, 38 yards, no touchdown, 7.8 DraftKings points. Absolute punt play. Didn't score a touchdown. Didn't get you 15 fantasy points. You really needed 9. 7.8 isn't killing you when you need 9. And especially if you rostered Seth Roberts to get up to playing all 3 of those top running backs, it didn't matter to you that Seth Roberts had 7 fantasy points because you got 110 out of the others. And the cash line was much lower this week because of all the busts, mostly at tight end. Zach Ertz only with 3.5 DraftKings points. The Saints are good against tight ends. The Saints absolutely blew the doors off of the Eagles, and there was nobody on the Eagles offense that did well, really. James O'Shaughnessy, 2 targets, 1 catch, 4 yards, 1.4 points. Jared Cook, we knew he was thin, but that's why he's so cheap. And again, you're playing him to pay up for the other guys. So like if he had done better, it would have been nice, but O'Shaughnessy didn't kill you. The tight ends just didn't kill you this week. Jared Cook, 3 catches, 6 targets, 31 yards, and a touchdown. He paid off, 12.1 DraftKings points. Ricky Seals-Jones, 1.5 points, 1 catch, 3 targets, 5 yards. I mean, tight end's been a wasteland for a month now. If you hit on a tight end, you're just ahead of the game. If you could have gotten up to Jared Cook at 3,900 with all the missing pieces on the Raiders offense, and now Brandon LaFell just got injured again, so like Aitman and Roberts and Cook are basically the only options in the pass game if you're not counting Richard at running back. Defenses, Ravens for 3,200 didn't do great. The Saints did at 2,100, my favorite punt play on the day. At defense, 13 DraftKings points, 4 DraftKings points for the Cardinals, and 2 DraftKings points for the Panthers. Hopefully you had the Saints, or if you got your way to the Giants, that would have paid off as well. Looking at my cash game team, Lamar Jackson. First of all, congratulations to Adam for winning the 4-man. Second week in a row, he's got the lead on the season with 5 wins. I've got to try and catch up to him. I'm 2 behind. I've got 3 wins. Saquon Barkley, Deion Lewis, Odell Beckham Jr., Amari Cooper, Kenny Golladay, James O'Shaughnessy, David Johnson, Saints defense. I was a 2v2 away from having the nuts in cash, and I tinkered a lot before I went on the air yesterday. I was toying around with different things. Saquon Barkley was lock button. Lamar Jackson was lock button. Amari Cooper, I was 100% going to play in that spot. Kenny Golladay was somebody that became an X factor. Once MJJ was out, I knew he was going to get peppered with targets. I know he wasn't written up in Best Buys, but we talked about him a ton yesterday. There's no other options on that offense, and at 5,800, knowing he had a high probability of getting 9+ targets yesterday, at 5,800, Kenny Golladay was somebody that was all over my lineups yesterday, especially in cash. Again, projectable volume. O'Shaughnessy was the guy that allowed me to get up here to get these guys. David Johnson in Best Buys did what we thought would have been a 190-yard day with a touchdown and everything else. Saints defense did well. My 2v2 was Dion Lewis, not to Mark Ingram. Dion Lewis was Ezekiel Elliott here. And Odell Beckham Jr., I talked about how much I did not like the 4K wide receivers. The 4K wide receiver that I liked the most was, and this is reflected if you look, guys that do tournament study, if you go look at my allocations from the Millie Maker this week, I had 20% DJ Moore. He was somebody that I was warming up to as the week went on. He was written up in Mike Clay's wide receiver cornerback article on the week, another ESPN Plus piece that you get for your subscription, as well as on PFF, links everywhere, and you can use the promo codes that we have here to subscribe to PFF, written up by Scott Barrett on PFF as basically one of the top quarterback wide receiver matchups of the week was DJ Moore. So as much as I liked Cam, I knew he had to throw it to somebody. DJ Moore was somebody who was on my list, especially with as high as upside play as he was. I felt he was really fringy for cash. And I went for the projectable volume of Dion Lewis over the up and down probability for DJ Moore, which would have allowed me to get to Ezekiel Elliott against the Falcons. That ends up costing me roughly 50 fantasy points, would have given me 199 points in my cash game lineup, which would have swept, and it would have put me top 1, 2, or 3 in every high stakes tournament on the week. So a good week, not a great week. 73% of my head-to-heads won. I won 106. I lost 39. But this was the one that got away from me. That 2v2 ends up costing me basically all the Kesef. It just kind of is what it is. We're going to move on. We're going to try and win on Thursday for Thanksgiving. We're going to try and win this week in week 12. Hopefully you guys had a good week. I know that a lot of the players in our chat, somebody qualified for the King of the Beach tournament. They're going to be in the Keys in 2 weeks. Is it next week or 2 weeks on DraftKings? Good luck to him in the final. We had a couple other people that did really well in the Millie Maker. We had a couple people that swept their cash games with well over 200 last week. So our Discord was on it. Make sure that you get yourself in there, especially if you're subbed to the Twitch channel. There are subs-only channels where I hang out as well. As for everything else, I hope you guys have a really good Thanksgiving. Look out for the first look for Thanksgiving slate. Look out for my first look for the Week 12 slate and all my other content that comes out this week. I'm going to be less online because of the holiday. I'm traveling to see family. My stream schedule is posted on Instagram and Twitter. Again, all my socials are posted in the links down below in the description. Click that subscribe button before you leave and hit like, please. Here's another video for you guys to check out, and I'll catch up to you later. Bye.